Welcome to episode 14 of the Stageworthy Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby, and my guest today is Mark Allan, an actor, singer from Toronto. Mark is currently working with Smile Theatre, a Toronto-based company that performs for senior citizens. Our conversation picks up just as we're starting to talk about Smile Theatre, although the company name is cut off at the beginning of the audio. On Stageworthy, I interview people who make theatre, from actors, directors, playwrights, and more, and talk to them about everything from why they chose the theatre to their work process and anything in between. You can find Stageworthy on Facebook and Twitter at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at stageworthypodcast.com. If you like what you hear, I hope you'll subscribe on iTunes or whatever podcast app you use, and consider leaving a comment or rating.
To bring theater to senior audiences, so people that can't get out anymore. So we either go to little like Legion halls or theater spaces, or we go to like right into the nursing homes and long-term care homes sometimes. The other day we just did one that was like, it was at some conference center. I'm not even sure what it was for exactly, but it was like 300 people. We walked in, we didn't know that it was going to be like that big, because usually like these are like smaller, like it's little things. You tour out, it's like every day, you know, we meet in the morning and we tour out, you know, and it's maybe about 50 to 60 people, you know. Sometimes, I mean, when we go to the theater things, they can be a bit bigger, but we didn't know this was a new thing that they were doing, that they got asked to do, and we walked in and it was like this huge like benefit thing that was going on for like 300 people, so it was pretty cool. But it's a good company.
And is there a particular show? Is it a cabaret type thing, or is it?
Well, they do 4 different types of shows a year, and they just vary. So this one is actually, it's got original music in it for like there's one song to kind of like, the show's called Remember That Song. Right. And because the show Smile, they usually like, they have their shows and they have writers and they write shows and stuff like this, and they can be little jukebox things with kind of a storyline through, or they can be completely original, like they did one called In Flanders Fields that we've done, and it was all new music and, you know, about John McCrae and his life. But this one is like, they got together with a group of seniors, these 2 writers, and they collected these stories, and then they created one story out of it about these 2 people meeting, or how their lives ended up together and beyond. So it's pretty interesting. So it's the one song is like original, and then the rest of it is like their lives through the years and the songs that meant something to them. Because I guess this writer, there's been these new studies done on like Alzheimer's patients and stuff like that, how music really like triggers things for them, right? Yeah. So he kind of wanted to hear from seniors and find out like what songs really meant things to them at certain times of their lives. So it's pretty interesting, and it's a good response. It's like one of those jobs. It's not like, obviously not one of the most glamorous jobs. No. Right? You're kind of traveling in a van and you're like setting your stuff up and sitting down. It's an equity gig, which is great, and you're home every night pretty much. Yeah. In Toronto, which is like unheard of pretty much, unless you're doing a Mirvish show, right? Yeah. But you see people's responses, and then like nurses will come up to us and they'll be like, that man hasn't had any recognition or any speech in like 6 months, and he's like singing along, and then afterwards like speaking to us and telling us that he enjoyed the show. So it's a pretty cool company. It's been around for 40 years, this company. Yeah. So it's a good one of those, like, you feel you're doing something a little bit more valuable with your talent. If that makes any sense.
It does.
I mean, we're entertaining people is like what we do, and that's like bringing happiness to people. But when you can bring it to people that are in positions that, you know, this really is a highlight of, like, you know, their time is a great opportunity.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
When did you first realize, just going away from that for a second, When did you first realize that theater was something that you wanted to do?
I think I was pretty young. I think as soon as I kind of, when you're like a little kid, you're like, I want to be a cop. When you watch stuff on TV, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a detective, and I want to be Batman. And when I kind of got that, because I would watch TV and get those ideas, and when I kind of got the recognition of like, oh, well, these people are actors. They pretend at this, and that's their job. I was like, oh, you can be everything. So it was pretty young that I decided, and I was fortunate enough to like I grew up in just outside of Ottawa, and they had drama programs in the public school, which I don't know if a lot of people have that.
No, I think no, I don't think.
Yeah, and we were pretty lucky, and so like started grade 5, so we weren't like so little. Grade 5, and we had like this fabulous woman, like her name was Carol Hay, and she's pretty involved in the industry. I think she does film and TV stuff now, or she produces stuff. Anyways, I remember that when we were kids, because we lived up in Ottawa, there's that show You Can't Do That on Television.
Oh yes, yeah.
And she was like the drama coach for the kids on that show, so it was like high stakes being in her class.
It's always funny when I hear people talk about You Can't Do That on Television. I remember that as this little Canadian show.
Yeah.
There's people in the States who know it because it was on
Yeah.
Nickelodeon.
Got
or something.
crazy,
like crazy, yeah.
But,
so you worked with that?
So yeah, I worked with, so she was my drama teacher in grade 5, and she just was like, it was like a really valuable thing to have someone that was like this professional working with kids, because she actually taught us like a lot of things. Like I'll never forget that when we went to go see a show one time, she had a whole like 10-minute discussion in the class of like how to be a good audience member, which I don't think kids are taught at all.
No.
And she's like, you know what? Like you can laugh if something's funny. You can and when you're clapping, she used to say like, if you're clapping, you don't want to clap like this. You want to clap double time, because then it sounds like there's more people and the actors get more energy from you, and it's going to be a better show. And I always remember that, and I thought it was just amazing. But anyway, she really kind of started the ball rolling of my love for theater, I guess. And we were fortunate enough, because we lived in Ottawa, like we'd go to like the NAC quite a bit, to see kids shows and that in public school, and then moving into high school, the same thing, having like really good drama teachers that were really invested, like not just teaching it to something they had to teach.
Yeah.
Like, these teachers really loved what they were doing, and so got to go to the NAC and see all those kind of shows, and we're able quite often to go to talkbacks, and so then I would end up being the one that would be like manipulating the talk, or not manipulating, like taking over the talkback and asking all these questions. I remember like having like a half-hour discussion when I was a kid with Colin Fior and Goldie Semple, trying to find out everything that I could at that time, whatever was interesting to me when I was 13.
Yeah. Do you remember what the first theater you saw was?
God, I don't. I don't remember. I think it was a musical of some sort, though, because I really liked musicals too. But my the high school I went to, they never did musicals.
Oh.
And so when I was like 16, I guess, what grade is that? Like 11?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, if I want to do musicals, I'm going to have to start doing it outside of school. So I started joining like all the community theater stuff I could find, and getting involved with the musicals through that, which kind of spiraled into kind of what I ended up doing with my life.
That's kind of unusual that a high school wouldn't do musicals, because that's
I don't know.
Sell.
My school was originally supposed to be a tech school, so and by the time I got there, it wasn't. But I don't know if that, because we didn't have we had a stage and we had some bars of light, but it wasn't like crazy setup for theater in our school. But our drama room was. Our drama room was because for tech,
right?
So they had lighting boards. We had 8 or 9 lines of lights, and it was like a beautiful little black box theater. But it was tiny. You could do shows in there and have maybe cram 30 people in to watch.
Yeah.
But the actual on stage, we didn't have that much that elaborate of a setup.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, our stage was in the cafeteria, so sound was really bad.
Yeah.
and it was the same place where we had all the assemblies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was the same idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
At what point did you really seriously realize that it was a thing that you could do and as a career?
I think when I started doing it outside of high school and got like good response from people and people telling me like, oh, you should do this if you're, because I would express my desire, and when the older people like the directors or whatever were very encouraging in that. Because my parents obviously weren't like most parents. They're like, you got to do something. And I was always like, no. Because I think I started singing when I was pretty young that I wanted to be an actor. I think I was about grade 8. So I wasn't even in high school yet when I was like, I know this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so it was like a blessing and a curse. Because sometimes like, being in school, you're like, why do I need to learn geometry? I'm going to be an actor.
Of course, yeah. Yeah. I had a similar thing because I would be in, I always had trouble with math and I was, the teacher would be working with me and say, well, what, you're going to need math. I mean, what is it you're going to want to do with your life? You don't want to be an actor. And they were like, well, you would need to count how many steps you were going to take.
Never.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I never need to. I would always be like, give me a calculator.
Yeah.
Because when I'm grown up, I won't need to do this in my head.
Yeah.
So I found that hard.
Did you find, was it your parents were like trying to encourage you to do something else? Or?
Yeah, like they would be like, they'd try to like steer it in like, well, you like to be an actor, lawyers, like people that are lawyers, that's kind of like acting and stuff like that. And I was like, oh God. So, but then I think that once I started doing it again outside of school, and they would come into like these bigger theaters, like these, because in Ottawa too, they have they don't have a huge amount of professional theater there. They have the NAC, they have like GCTC, like there's like a couple. There's just like a little handful, which is why no one lives in Ottawa. They all come to Toronto. But their community theaters are really well run and really production value is just ridiculous. Like when I first got to the city and was doing shows, like I was like, the community theater shows, the production values were 10
really
times
low.
bigger.
Yeah.
So and so I started doing the community theater shows, and then they kind of started like seeing that. I guess when you see other people around and they're like, oh, they like what your kid's doing, you kind of you kind of get forced to change. Like, oh, maybe you can do it, and they did finally like have that conversation where they thought, oh, I could do it.
Did they make any deals with you? Go to school, like if you took a theater program somewhere or anything like that, or? No,
I mean I had kind of always grown up. When I decided I wanted to be an actor, I knew that at the University of Windsor there was an acting program, and my family all comes from Windsor and Detroit area.
Okay.
We moved away. We were like the family that moved away. So I always thought, oh, I'm going to go to Windsor for the drama program, and then found out that they had a musical theater program. So I thought, oh, even better. But then right before that last year of high school, I saw just like the teacher had up in the drama room, like the different places, and they had the Sheridan College poster and just the program, and the program just sounded more like what I wanted, because again I wasn't so academic, I guess. And university, it's like a lot of like the writing of all the papers and like taking all the other stuff, and I knew that I wasn't interested in doing that, and I didn't have the patience to do things that I didn't think were going to actually get me to.
I felt the same way because I initially got into Ryerson and George Brown at the same time. I decided to go to George Brown because I didn't want to take a math, a science, a psychology, and English. I just wanted to do theater all the time. Yeah.
And we had to take a couple. Like at Sheridan, you had to take like a English and something else. But because when I was in school, they had that grade 13, and I took my grade 13s, I kind of got out of those first year things at college.
Yeah.
So it was pretty good.
Nice. How long is the program at Sheridan?
It's a 3-year program.
3 year?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it? Was it like
I went for a year.
Oh, okay. Okay. What happened at the end of that year?
There was just a lot of different ideas that I had, and that the teachers had. I guess not to get into anything, but there was a lot of conflicts and stuff, and so some of the teachers there weren't into me. And then some of them were, and so they actually asked me to leave. And so one teacher came out after this meeting. He's like, they can't actually do that because of your marks. Your marks are really high. So if you go to the dean, you'll be allowed back in the program. So I was like, I'm going to get back into the program, and I'm going to do that. And then literally slept on it that night, and woke up the next morning. I'm like, oh, and he said, but if you come back, you're probably not going to be treated well by the faculty. And so by those faculty members. So kind of slept on it, and then the next morning woke up, I'm like, you know what, if I'm not going to get treated well by people, I'm going to get paid to not be treated well by people. I'm not going to pay someone else. And just started luckily working. I was really fortunate.
You're really lucky, yeah.
Because things just, so much of this business, like, yes, you have to have talent.
Yeah.
But fuck.
Nope.
So much.
Podcast. You can
so
say
much,
fuck all you want.
So much is like how opportunities come to you.
Yeah.
And just how things lead to other things and the people you meet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate.
Do you remember what you did, like what your first gig out of
very first gig was Canada's Wonderland. It was the first year that they, Paramount, or no, it was the year right before Paramount was officially going to take it over. So to kind of like lead into it, they had like a big Star Trek museum that they brought in. And then they hired a whole bunch of actors to do these they called them environmental skits. So we weren't like the strolling characters, because I think they did end up becoming strolling characters the years after. They didn't do these skits anymore, which was too bad because it was a lot of fun. But you basically, you'd go out and there'd be like 3 of you or 2 of you, whatever, and you'd start these like skits that would involve like the crowd and stuff like that. So it was great fun. It's it was scripted, but there was like a lot of improv, so that was a lot of fun to be able to do when you're, kind of just learning everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, really lucky. And then I think the next thing I did that really got the ball rolling was like, I was at a bar, I was at Woody's, I think, and there was like downstairs by the bathrooms like a call board and stuff, and they're like, auditions for this show, and I don't think it was Fringe at the time. It might have been, I don't think it was though. I think it was just some sort of festival, because there was a lot more little things like that. And so auditioned, got this show, and then that guy that directed the show and wrote the show, he ended up being the director over at the Mousetrap on the Truck Theater.
Okay.
And so, I was like 21, I guess, when did you go to school? 18. So I was probably 20 years old.
Yeah.
And he hired me to go do that show, and that's like a non-equity gig. And how that ran was that you could just watch the show any night, just come in if you're understudying, so I was understudying. Just come in any night, you just watch the show, take notes, whatever. And if you can, because they didn't pay you, until you were in the show,
right?
You would go on Monday nights and rehearse, and so that was like the thing. And then if you went on, I think it was like $50 a show. So that was like great and stuff starting off, and then really fast. I think that I started understudying in November, and it was trial by fire. Like I think I had like my watching of it a week. I had the one rehearsal, and I think I was on like Tuesday. So I had like a script on one side of the stage, script on the other side of the stage. Yeah. And it was a funny place. Like the Truck Theater, wasn't built to last. It was built just to be up and out. But it was the show that ended up running for 20. I think it was 26 years, 27 years in the end. And so they didn't have any kind of tannoid system. So the show was going on upstairs. Dressing rooms were downstairs. And you kind of had to keep your ear up, but you couldn't kind of really hear. Oh. And so there'd be like multiple times where like they'd be like, you'd hear like a line spoken really loud twice, and you're like, people are running, just running upstairs to get on stage. Yeah. But anyway, so I think like in January, the guy left that I was understudying, and so I took it over. Huh. And so then I was like making, I think it was like $350 a week. But back then, that wasn't so bad. No. I think that my rent, I was living with 3 other roommates, and I think we paid I paid $250 or something like that. And so like suddenly I was like the big money roller.
Of course, yeah.
And I would be the one that would like cover the rent, and people would put up how much they owed me on the fridge and stuff like that. It was like ridiculous, but it was like good. Like it allowed me to live just as at being an actor.
Yeah.
And then also the good thing about that job when I was doing it was that they so they had the understudies, how I told you, but because it was like a non-paid thing, they'd have like a list of people. So there'd be like all these people underneath you that would be understudying. So I was understudying, I was the next in line, so I bumped up. Luckily, happened to be the only one at the time. But then they would hire more people, and so if you got like a summer job, like a summer show, you could literally tell these understudies, "Hey, look, do you want to cover for me for 2 months?" And if they agreed to it, you're off. Like you go do your other show. And so it kind of became like this day job to go back to. It was really wild. It was really it was great. Like as a young actor, like having that freedom.
Yeah.
And you know, like not having to work a waitering job, not having to work, you know, any kind of like tempy officey job. Was just very fortunate.
And that's very lucky.
You know?
How long did you do the Mousetrap for?
I think I did it for 5 years, off and on.
That is a long time to do a show.
Yeah, but would come and go.
Yeah,
but also yes, very long time, and learned such valuable lessons in that. Like,
well, that's. I mean, I was just going to say, because like how to keep a show fresh over a long period of time is fresh, like a valuable thing to learn.
Yeah. And so like that's I learned. I'm also such a learner that way. Like I think I ended up. I mean, I learned in my year at Sheridan. I learned some valuable things. I learned how to like make my resume, make my audition book, and like little things like that. But working on the job like is so valuable. That's why when sometimes I have young people now ask me, because I work with young people doing different things, and they're like, "Oh, what school would you recommend?" And like I'm like, any school is gonna have its its pluses and minuses. Yeah. And you know, if you don't find what you want, go take private vocal lessons. Go take private dance lessons. Go take private acting lessons. You know, go try to work if you can.
Yeah. I was. I mean, when I was a lot younger, I thought that who needs a theater school to teach them how to act? But then when I went to theater school, I kind of learned that I had a lot of bad habits that I had to unlearn, because all I ever did was amateur theater and high school theater, which, while valuable, you can learn a lot of bad habits.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm really glad that I did, that I was talked into doing that.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, you can learn the same thing if you take private acting classes.
Yeah,
and things
totally.
Like that.
Or work with just really good people that you can like kind of emulate and see how they work, and learn through that.
You don't always get that opportunity, though, especially not over a long period of time.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it takes a long time to really sort of figure out, like, who's this person that I'm working with? And, what part of their personality am I seeing every day?
Yeah.
But if you work with people for a very long period of time, you really get to sort of see that. Yeah. What was the first professional musical that you did?
The first professional musical. So I guess becoming Equity kind of would be.
Sure, yeah.
I guess that would be. I became Equity and did Forever Plaid.
Okay. When was that? Was that at what is now the Panasonic, or was that at a different location?
No, that was playing. And I think I was a bit too young when that was running in the city. I was just a bit too young. I think I was like maybe just when I first got here, so 20 years old, and those guys were a bit older. Yeah, I think they were like closer to their 30s. That group of boys, mid 20s to 30s. No, it was in Barrie. I think it was called Griffin Theatre.
Okay,
I don't know if they're around anymore.
I don't know.
And I think it was kind of a co-pro with that theater, because we were in Barrie for a while, and then we were in Port Hope. Mm-hmm. So we did the show there, and then transferred it over to there.
Yeah. Huh. You've been working like as an actor without a day job for like a little while now.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a pretty cool opportunity to be able to do that. Obviously everybody sort of in a way falls into that kind of work.
Right.
Did you? You have had a few ups and down periods where you haven't been able to work that much? Once in a while,
for sure.
And what have you done? Like, what kind of day jobs
I've only ever worked for Mirvish.
Oh, really?
In 2 different ways. I worked, first started in the ticketing offices at Ticket King, and then did front of house stuff at the theaters. And I love, I love that job.
There's a lot of good in being able to do that.
It's nice. Because the Ticket King was okay, but that was like a day job. Like you had the day hours. What I like about the Ed Mirvish job is that you basically live your same hours as when you're an actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have your days free to go to auditions, and you can, do pretty much everything as when you're a performing actor. You have the same hours. So that's what I like about that.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. How long have you done that, on and off?
I think that I started 2001, but that was a really short little stint with them. I only did 2 shows with them, and then I left again for like a good. It might have been 3 or 4 years, and then came back, and then it was more like steady off and on kind of a job. Because when the first time I worked for the Mirvish, I had actually been really lucky, and I worked for a long time without a job, without a day job. And so when I had to do that, it was that weird ego, prideful thing, like, oh my God, I have to be like a real person and take a job,
Yeah.
And I guess it's more to just like the uncertainness of it. Like I didn't know like what I was, because I'd never done it. So it was like the weird, and it's Ed Mirvish, like it's an easy, fun job.
Yeah.
But not knowing, I was just like, oh God, this is going to be like stressful and hard and things like that. So yeah, I really love it there.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, and it's good to see shows. I mean, you see shows.
So good to be able to see things and like learn. Again, if you can take that job and be like, I'm so bored, I have to watch this show a million times, or you can learn.
Well, I was just going to say, because now you're able to see, you're seeing a show as it evolves over a long period of time, and seeing how the cast goes from, oh my God, I'm so nervous, to kind of how to keep the show alive, and then figuring it out.
Yeah,
it's so fascinating.
And even there was the best one that I worked was when Martin Short did his show there. He did it was like pre-Broadway. And so it was evolving as we were watching it. Like it would change on a daily basis. Like there were sections of the show that were written that way. Like he would bring people up and be his Jiminy Glick character.
Yeah.
But also just chunks would change or be moved or taken out or added in. And that was like, I soaked that in. Like if I could be in house, I wanted to be in house to see that, because it was like watching a master class in comedy with these people, and just learning and seeing how that goes. So yeah. It's great.
Have you done any, right now you have the advantage of doing a tour where you leave your home and you come back in the evening. Have you done a tour out of the city where you're on the road for a while? Or?
I did one of Ross Petty's pantomimes one year, and it was when they decided to take it across Canada. So we started off in Vancouver and worked our way back across. But we didn't go east. We only went as far as Toronto.
Okay.
Worked our way back to Toronto.
How long did that take?
I want to say I feel like it was maybe 2 months. Like we were never somewhere for long.
We did the show.
We'd do the show maybe for like a week in Vancouver, and then like for a week wherever. I think it was like almost like a week every time, all the way across. So maybe it was even like a month and a half that we were touring that show. Yeah. But
is touring something that you've enjoyed, or is it just something that you'd rather not do?
It's fun. I'm not a great flyer, so
yeah.
But you kind of get used to it when you do it that often. It was actually not so bad by the end. But I would, I don't know. You have to leave home though. You can never really, unless you're doing like a Mirvish show here or something like the small theaters. I haven't worked in Toronto. I don't even know when the last show I did that was actually in Toronto, like some fringe stuff.
Yeah.
But like to do a bigger show, you're always gone. You know, like I was in Halifax last year. I was in I don't know where I was. I was gone last year, almost like for a good 6 months. I was in Halafax. I can never remember what I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after a while, it's a bit of a blur.
It does start to blur. Yeah.
Right?
But I was gone for like off and on for 6 months last year, which is great. But it you know, I mean, you just get used to it. Like that's how it is. It's
kind of just the life of an actor. Yeah. I mean, I've talked to a bunch of people on fringe tours and things like that, you say, you know, you're not a good flyer, and most people that I'm talking to, it's like they're driving from like across Canada into a car.
That would be hard. That would be hard to do. Yeah, I've never had to do that. Never had to do that. This show that I'm doing now, we will go up. The farthest we go up is Ottawa, and we're doing a week up there. But I'm from there, so I'll see friends and family.
Yeah.
And then we go as far south as like London-y area, and but that's like only a 2-night thing that we're staying over. So mostly every night I'm home.
So you're not really going that far. It's all Ontario.
All Ontario. Yeah. Like we were yesterday we were in Hamilton to do that one thing. So.
Yeah. Was that the 300 people thing?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
With that show, you were talking about the gentleman who you hear about. This guy hasn't talked, anything like that. Do you find, is there a difference for you in performing for a more elderly audience than there is for like doing other shows?
Not really. I don't think so. I mean, you definitely get more of a rush when there's more people. Like I can say yesterday when we didn't expect the 300 people.
Yeah.
Like we definitely were a little bit more obviously pumped up.
Yeah.
Just because it was like and also it depends on the type of audience, because some audiences for Smile, like some of them are like, we have like non-responsive audiences. You know, where they're just like they don't move.
Right.
But they you can tell that they're engaged or listening.
Yeah.
And then you have like you know, like any other audience.
Yeah.
And so we were like fortunate enough that this like big group of 300 people were like very wild and rowdy.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I had a thought about something I wanted to ask you about. With as somebody who is, I mean, you primarily are doing musicals now.
Yeah.
How do you, obviously working keeps your voice in shape. How do you keep your voice in shape when you're not doing the show?
I'm not like the best at that. Like I don't like really have like a set routine. I mean, just like some singing. I do like good shower concerts for sure when no one's home. Pretty much that. Like, I mean, I guess, but I'm always kind of humming and stuff though too.
Yeah.
Like, just I think I'm always kind of like, even at Mirvish, like if I'm doing that and you're working lobby and there's like a million people making noise, you can get away with humming to yourself for the whole time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess just like naturally, just kind of always doing something.
Do you do like cabaret performances, or I know there's a thing at Statler's that I know a lot of people go to. And
if my arm is twisted, I am that, like my hands are sweating just thinking about that. I'm not so great with those kind of things. I love my 2.5 week, 3 week rehearsal.
Right. Yeah.
Being prepared. Like people are always like opening night. They're like, I'm so nervous. Are you nervous? I'm like, no. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm not nervous because the preparation and the work, I feel so at ease and relaxed. Cabarets, when it's like something thrown together, or I have to like go up and they're like, just go up there and talk about something. I hate being myself on stage, you know? Like it's just, it's so stressful to me. Like I'm like, you know, that's why I'm an actor. I want to be other people.
Yeah.
I want to be me.
Well, that's not uncommon for people to have difficulty as actors, you know. Just be yourself. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, what does that
mean? Is there something that you wanted to do that you haven't yet?
Like show-wise?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do Into the Woods. I was like, I saw that show. That was one of the, like, when I was younger, it was like Phantom of the Opera was out, and like Cats. It was like all Andrew Lloyd Webber, but like Les Mis and all that stuff. And so like I really got into like those musicals, and that was when I really was like, I want to be a musical theater performer. Was listening to like Colm Wilkinson and being like, amazing, you know, like I thought amazing, Michael Ball, like all of these guys' voices that I was just like, I want to be like them. But then like, Andrew Lloyd Webber, good. But then like Sondheim, all of a sudden, like it was like the PBS Into the Woods.
I remember that. I remember
Yeah,
that.
it's amazing. Yeah. And that was like, blew my mind away. Like I was like, oh my gosh, because just like, like musical theater, and you really had to act like Sondheim stuff. You can't fake that. Yeah. You gotta like, you gotta act as well. Yeah. So the community theater that I was in when I was a kid, I was like pressuring them, like, Into the Woods, Into the Woods, Into the Woods, Into the Woods. And so then finally, by the time they got it together, was the year I was leaving to go to Sheridan.
No,
we're doing Into the Woods. I was like, I hate my life, and the show keeps eluding me. It's like one of those things that all my life, like, there was a company that it basically looked at, they wanted me to do it, and I had just booked a trip to Europe, and I was like, I just booked a trip to Europe. Timing. So it's like those little things that just slip away from you, but that happens all the time. That just happened to me again with a show out in Calgary. I thought that I kind of missed the opportunity. I was working there last year. I was doing Spamalot with Stage West, and they were doing Young Frankenstein. And I was like, I really want to do that next year. I really want to play Frederick. Yeah. And so like took all of these tap classes throughout the year to prepare for it, and then was talking to the stage manager one day. She's like, oh, are you going to be around in December? I'm like, I'm in Halifax. She's like, oh, we're having the auditions. I was like, great. So I had to put that out of my mind because I'm like, I missed it. Yeah. And then the breakdown came out, and they had already cast. That was the only role that was already cast. So I was like, oh, okay, they already knew who they wanted. Well, then anyways, cut to like last week, because of the Matilda auditions, the guy that they had got Matilda. So they called me. They're like, "Can you do Young Frankenstein? Can you play the part?"
Oh my god!
Like, I'm doing the show now until the end of April.
Oh my god!
April 2nd. So it was like, again, one of those things where you're just like, oh, this is a funny business.
Yeah. Yeah. How was Spamalot out there?
Amazing. Yeah. I had so much fun. I had so much fun.
And you were playing?
I was playing Robin.
Oh, okay.
And it was a great time. It was like one of those dream casts. It was a huge cast, yet there was like zero backstage drama. Everybody got along. If something was going on, we all made sure we were going to go out together and do that. But it was a lot of fun. It was a good time.
That's good.
Yeah.
Favorite number that you got to do from Spamalot?
Well, Robin's song, clearly. I loved that Patter song. Was a lot, but I mean the whole show, just like, and we had such a good cast. So just like one of those things where like if you weren't on stage, you wanted to listen to what was happening.
Oh, I love
if you
those
weren't
shows.
busy changing.
I love being in a show when like everybody is so enjoying the show that everybody's like hanging out backstage just to watch what's going on. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So if you weren't busy like changing madly into another costume, you wanted to hear what was going on and see what was going on. But it was nice. That was a show. I don't have much paraphernalia up in the house, but I won an award for the show.
Oh, nice. And
it was these Calgary Critics Awards, and I didn't know anything about it. And I started getting these texts for like the nominations. I'm like, congratulations, you've been nominated for this thing. So I have no idea what it is. Yeah. So I kind of thought, well, that's nice. And I kind of put it out of my mind because I literally thought, well, I'm not from Calgary. Maybe they just need like every category has to have 4 names. Yeah. So I kind of put it out of my head, and I totally thought it was nice. And then the night that it was the big award, we all went because the show was nominated, I was nominated, the girl that played Our Lady of the Lake was nominated. So there's enough of us, the director was nominated. So there was enough of us that we all, again, our whole cast went.
Were you still in Calgary?
We were still there, which was so wild too. And my sister so happened to be visiting, and so she was all excited, and she's like, oh, you're gonna win, it's gonna be so great. I was like, I'm not, this is so let's go have fun, let's not get into that. But then they did the announcements, and then all of a sudden it was my name, and it was like one of those weird like blackout, like could see my name up there, and like the noise of people screaming.
Yes, yeah,
but it was
yeah.
kind of muted, and like then turning and seeing people like trying to get me to stand up. And then I definitely learned too that if you go to an awards thing and you think you have no chance, still fucking have something prepared, because I just like, I don't even remember. I said while I was up there, I was like, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Like, my sister recorded it, so I got to watch it afterwards because I left and I was like, I have no idea what just happened.
Yeah,
but it was nice, you know. It's like, and when you're like doing a show that you love, and then you kind of get like any kind of recognition like that. I mean, what else can you really ask for? Because I don't know. Like I've said to people, again, like younger people starting out in this business, I'm like, if you have aspirations of like fame and fortune, that's great, but like that's not like really reality of what happens here in Canadian theater, especially.
It's not even really the reality of what happens in American theater.
Really, no, not really.
There's maybe like a few people whose name you could say that they are famous in theater, but that doesn't happen.
Totally. Much. But so I would say to them, I said the best thing and the most you can. Well, I don't know. Maybe that sounds like you're shooting low, but I always say like to get the respect of your peers in the industry is probably the highest honor I can think of. Yeah, you know, having people to say like, oh yeah, he's a really good, solid performer. He's great to work with. I'd take that, you know, over like, you know, a Lamborghini any day.
Well, I mean, Lamborghinis break down. And,
exactly.
And, you know, you realize that you're in debt because you're maintaining a Lamborghini, but maintaining theater relationships and having the respect of people goes a long way. Yeah. And you have, I think that, I mean, once you have that, you can think back on that, you know, and it's a thing that you've got. And like you say, it's like your one piece of theater paraphernalia that you have in the apartment, which is like, you know, speaks to that.
Right.
Once you're done, I mean, the Smile show, it's going for...
it'll go till the end of April.
The end of April. Do you know what you're doing after that? Or do you
I'm going to go do the Burlington Arts Center. They're doing a production of Spelling Bee that I'm doing.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. And can you say what role you have in that?
Leaf, Coney Bear. Yeah.
Nice.
It'll be fun.
How long is that going for?
I think that starts the end of June and runs till the end of July.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's short but sweet.
Short but sweet. But I mean, there aren't really any long running shows anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a friend. She was living in New York, and when she left Toronto, it was when, you know, Les Mis was running for years, and Phantom was running for years, and like every show was running for years. Yeah. And that's when she left to go to New York. And when she came back, she was expecting it would still be that way. And now, I think Kinky Boots is the longest running show right now. And, and I guess it's going to be closing in the summer, but like we don't have long running shows anymore.
Toronto. I mean, it had like that heyday of stuff, right? And it was funny. It was like when I first started, it was like all those shows, and I was too young to be in anything. Yeah. And then it kind of swung back around again, but then it was like they're all like trying to cast like, you know, Rent. I'm not like Rent, but like that was like early on, I guess. Yeah. But then there was like other shows, but then they were really trying to cast like truly cast only teenagers.
Yes, yeah.
You know, you're like, okay, so I was too young, and now I'm too old.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it's funny that, I mean, we've gone to this point here where New York theater, these shows run for years. Yeah. Years and years, like Wicked's still playing, and you know, Phantom of the Opera is still playing. And here, maybe it's because we just don't have the theaters to support a long run. Because I know subscribers won't settle for like a show that runs for years because they want shows. Right. And you know, there's only a finite amount of space, and ticket sales don't go that well for that long.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what, like, Kinky Boots is closing in May, they say. I don't know, and I don't know if that's like set in stone. Because of the American dollar, like if we get all those Americans coming in again, like that's when things were really.
That's true because I think that when Les Mis and Phantom were running for a long time, the dollar was not awesome, and tour groups were coming in droves. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and it was really like I can say, because when I was working at Ticket King, I don't know why I put the emphasis on Ticket King. Ticket King, the whole SARS ridiculousness that was blown out of proportion killed theater in Toronto.
Yeah.
Americans stopped coming.
Yeah.
Like I saw it. I was on the phones.
Yeah.
And we had at that time there was all the shows, like The Lion King and everything that was going on, and it just like dropped. And then what they tried to do was, then it was like, okay, well, to get people, we're gonna do all these package deals. So like, come and pay this amount and you can get the show and 2 nights at a hotel and a meal. Well, then people got used to that, and then they didn't want to pay more without getting all that.
Yeah.
You know, so then it was like, you know, it just that kind of spiraled in that way.
Yeah.
To my understanding of what I was seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So it's we would do good getting Americans back over here.
I mean that literally, I think that's been the bread and butter of the big show, the Mirvish theater. That's been what's kept it going.
Right.
You know, there's great to have locals, but we need the tour groups. Apparently,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And it's the same for like Stratford and
for sure,
and Shaw as well.
Yeah.
Tour groups are what pay the bills.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't know if I think that's necessarily a good idea, that, you know, we can't do it ourselves, but then who can?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
we are in essence a small country.
Yeah.
You know, and we're doing the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
So you've got Spelling Bee.
Yeah.
And are you able to look beyond that yet, or like how far ahead can you look as a?
Not yet. Well, it just depends. Like some years, you know what you're doing all year long.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year, I knew I was like booked up all year. But like right now, that's all I know is like Spelling Bee, and then I'm like hoping to call Marie and get my job at Ed Mirvish back.
Are you auditioning for stuff right now, or is it like what's the audition landscape like right now? Is it generally are there a lot of things auditioning, or no?
I don't know. I don't know. Like the last stretch of things too, I've been lucky that it's just been like I've been asked to do these things.
Yeah.
And so then you're kind of like, when you're already booked for something, you're obviously, your agent's not going to send you out on stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of out of sync of what's actually auditioning right now, or what's going on. But like I think like January and February are usually really busy times. So assuming that all of that is all done. Yeah. You know, I think pretty much people are all set up for their summers. But I guess like it's later on that, so maybe in the summer there'll be more things for the fall and winter coming up. So, yeah.
We're basically at the end of our time.
Oh, geez.
Thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah.